Today I'm showing you how to craft stories that sell without exactly being pushy or salesy. This is the exact framework that has helped my client generate over $4.2 million in the last year alone. This is the exact same framework serial entrepreneurs like Alex Hormozi, Steve Jobs, Damon John, and Ben Francis used to pass their stories across the world and build super fans and cult followings. This is the founder story framework. And this is a simple framework you can plug and play in your business, and I assure you it will make you a ton of money. And this is because good stories move people's hearts. And when you move people's hearts, you move them from logically thinking about your product or feeling an emotional connection to whatever you're selling. People would pay you and they will be happy to be a part of your journey. But why is the founder story framework different? You see, a lot of people tell stories that entertain, but they do not convert. Or worse, they sound like every other business owner out there. By the end of this video, you have a framework that converts your authentic experiences into stories that drive actual sales. Let's look at two examples of how people actually tell their founder stories. Example 1. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I started my business to help people achieve their dreams. Example 2. After getting my certification, I realized there was a huge gap in the market. The problem? These stories are easily forgettable. They don't create an emotional connection or show us why you are different from anybody in the market. Now here are the 5 core elements of the founder story framework. The first being the trigger moment. Let me show you how the trigger moment works with a real life example of one of my clients. When I met Sarah, her story sounded like this. I've always been passionate about health, so I decided to become a trainer. She had a ton of stories and experiences that actually led her there, but she wasn't just confident enough to tell them, or she didn't know how to. After working with me, here is what her story sounds like. I was standing in front of my closet, tears streaming down my face, as I realized none of my clothes fit anymore. My daughter's wedding was in 3 months, and I couldn't bear the thought of hiding the back of every photo. Do you notice the difference? Does this create a visual image? Do you feel somewhat a connection to her story? If you were selling something you needed, would you be compelled to buy? And that's the power of the founder story framework. So let's talk about the trigger moment. Every good story starts with a trigger moment. That moment where everything changed and you had the epiphany. Your trigger moment needs 3 things to make it work: a specific scene, emotional stakes, and universal truths. Allow me give you real life examples so I can explain better. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, tells her story like this. I was getting ready for a party and my white pants looked terrible. In frustration, I cut the fit of my control top pantyhose. That moment in front of the mirror changed everything. This story has the 3 elements I mentioned above: a specific scene, which is her getting ready, emotional stake, which was her frustration, and a universal truth, which is wanting to look good. Let's look at another example. This is how Steve Jobs tells his story. I dropped out of college and started dropping in on creative classes. Calligraphy class I took would later inspire Apple's beautiful typography. Again, a specific action or scene, which was dropping out of college. What are the emotional stakes here? He had no degree and an uncertain future. And what is the universal truth here? Curiosity. We're all curious. Let me explain why the trigger moment is essential to your founder story and why it resonates so deeply with viewers. When you start your story with a specific scene, it creates a visual image in the mind of your viewers and they actually start seeing your story in their mind's eye. Emotional stake creates tension and relatability. Everybody has experienced setback, and it's funny, most people can relate more to failure than they can to success. So it makes your story personally relevant. And then the universal truth makes the story bigger than you. It has to be something every single person can connect with. And at the base of every decision you make, there is that universal truth. You just have to find it. Element 2 of the founder story is the stakes. I know we just mentioned emotional stakes, but let me dive deeper in on stakes and why they really matter. This is where you actually answer the question, why would anyone care? Again, let me give you some real life examples. Damon John, founder of Fubo, tells his story like this. I was waiting tables at Red Lobster while sewing hearts in my mother's house. Each heart represented a chance between buying materials or paying bills. While Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark, tells his story like this. I was delivering pizzas and studying by day, sewing gym clothes in my parents' garage by night. Every delivery was funding my dream, but I was sleeping just 2 hours a night. If you're intelligent, you can see that these 2 stories carry elements from the trigger moments I mentioned above. The They talk about a specific scene, their emotional stakes, and somewhat universal truth, which is survival basically. But let's go a bit in depth on stakes. It's such a crucial element of your founder story, but a lot of people overlook it. In these two stories, you can clearly visualize what is at stake, picking between surviving and chasing a dream. You must create that vivid separation in the mind of your audience. This is what separates a story that sells from one that does not. Stakes matter because they convert a random sequence of events into something meaningful that resonates deeply with an audience. Here are some examples of really good stakes you can use. The vulnerability stake, where you share what you really had to lose, and it should always be deeper than money or status. There's also the internal conflict stake. This is where you share the conflict within different parts of yourself, your ambition versus your fears, your values versus your habits. Like, they make stories deeply human because we all battle with choices. Also, there's the relationship stakes. If a decision you made deeply affected a relationship you held there, had that part of your story. There is also the growth stake. If there was something you had to let go for your growth, that's a crucial part of your story. Because it's much more than would I succeed, it's now who would I become after this process. And finally, there is the truth stake. What you discovered about yourself during all of these struggles. These are realizations that have changed how you see everything else. And stakes work every single time because they tap into the fundamental aspects of human psychology and how we actually process stories. First, there is the mirror neuron responses. When we hear somebody struggling with something, we create a mental image of this thing and picture ourselves in that same situation. Like, your audience is literally experiencing a diluted version of the story you're telling them. Next is the evolutionary pattern recognition. Our brains have evolved to learn from other people's experiences as a survival mechanism. When we create stories with real stakes, it activates an ancient learning system. People unconsciously begin to think, this could actually happen to me. And what happens? You get their attention. Next is the dopamine release. The uncertainty of high-stakes situation triggers dopamine release in our brain. This is the same thing that makes us binge watch shows or read past our bedtimes. Again, there's the emotional investment aspect of this. Stakes create called emotional contagion. We start to care about the outcome because we are now invested in the person's story. The higher the stakes, the stronger our emotional connection. And finally, stakes activate our sense-making mechanism. Humans use stories to make sense of life and extract meaning, which is why stories have existed for generations and they will never go out of fashion. Like, stories with stakes help us to prepare for our own challenges. Like, when somebody explains how they face something drastic, it helps me prepare for my own situation. A well-told founder story with high stakes will trigger these responses in the minds of your viewers because our brains process narrative stakes in real time, like as if we're experiencing it alongside the storyteller. Element 3 of the founder story framework is the struggle sequence. And this is where most people go wrong. They either skip the struggle or make it too vague. I always advise my clients to use the rule of 3. With the struggle sequence, you want to tell 1, your first attempt and your failure. 2nd, your pivot and your failure. And 3rd, your breaking point. Again, let's look at some real life examples. Emily West of Glossier tells her story like this. First failure being her blog being rejected by major publishers. 2nd, her pivot, she started into the gloss while working full-time. And 3rd, her breaking point when she realized existing beauty brands weren't listening to their customers. Let's look at Brian Chesky of Airbnb. His first failure was when he maxed out his credit cards and he was in $40,000 of debt. His 2nd pivot, when he sold election-themed cereal boxes just to survive. And his breaking point when he almost gave up in 2009 just before Y Combinator. The struggle sequence works because it creates a powerful emotional arc that mirrors fundamental patterns in human psychology and experiences. Like the rule of 3 structure, first attempt, the pivot, and the breaking point is so effective because first, it establishes determination. When we see someone genuinely try and fail, we feel something because we've all been there. 2nd, it creates believable growth. You failing, learning, and adapting shows you being human because we all try, and that makes your journey feel authentic. And we all know that real change rarely comes from first attempts. And yet again, it heightens emotional investment. Because at the breaking point, audiences are now invested because they've seen your honest attempts and your failures. And then there's some dramatic tension because we want to see if or how this person would fail or succeed. Element 4, the discovery. Now let's talk about actually building this story into your offer and selling with it. Your discovery moment has to tie directly to what you're selling. This is when you had that eureka moment and you discovered my struggle could be an offering. Again, let's look at some real life examples. Mari Fali of B School tells his story like this. I was trying to coach one-on-one while bartending to pay bills. One night, a customer asked why I didn't teach multiple people at once online. That conversation sparked what became B School. Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income tells his stories like this. After getting laid off, I discovered my architectural exam study notes were helping others. Someone suggested I turn them into an ebook. That $7,908.55 in the first month showed me a new path. There is a clear structure in these examples. First, the realization. Second, the experimentation. And third, the validation. It has to feel surprising yet inevitable. Let me break down why this actually works. First, the realization. This works because it often comes from an unexpected source, like Mari's bar customer. Like, it then shows your audience that sometimes the breakthrough or the insight comes from outside your tunnel vision. And it makes your story feel believable because you don't figure it all out alone. Something out there shows you the solution, and it creates a memorable light bulb moment readers can picture whenever they think about your story. Then the experiment. This shows you took immediate action on the insight, and it shows you demonstrating courage to try something new again after multiple failures. And there is no shame in making it feel scrappy, like show them real authentic process, because that makes success feel replicable because it actually started small. And then the validation is where you show proof that this discovery actually works, and we can clearly see a before and an after moment. The key is that your discovery moment has to feel unexpected yet logical. Like, it often involves seeing value in something you were already doing, but you were just thinking about it differently. And finally, the transformation bridge. This is where you sell. The typical formula for the transformation bridge goes like this. I discovered solution, which helped me result, and now I help ideal clients achieve desired outcome without pain point. Let me show you some real life examples. Ramit Sethi of I Will Teach You to Be Rich tells a story like this. He says, I was a Stanford grad drowning in personal finance complexity. Now I help millions automate their money and build rich lives. Mel Robbins of 5 Second Rule tells his story like this. I was hitting snooze 9 times every morning, nearly bankrupting my family. Now I help millions of people beat procrastination with a simple countdown. The transformation bridge works because it creates a powerful psychological link between your journey and your audience's potential journey. Your before state mirrors where your audience is now, and your after state represents their desired future. And the brain creates a connecting narrative between these 2 points. And you're not just teaching something theoretical, you're showing a lived experience of transformation. This goes on to activate hope in the mind of whoever you're trying to sell to. Now let me share you a few implementation tips of these 5 elements with the Founder Story Framework. Number 1, you need to have a story bank. Be it screenshots, recordings, a notes app, a journal, you need to document your story, because you need all of these elements when you want to put together your story. You need to have a content plan. I always advise have one flagship story, which is your founder story, and then have sub stories, maybe for the different offers you have in your business. You can also use this framework for client stories. It doesn't always have to be your story. If you need a content planning framework that helps you build content that ties directly to your offer, you can get mine for free with the link in my bio. And finally, you must have a testing framework. You want to share your story on different platforms in different formats. You want to have a short form content series, a long form vlog, or maybe just one long form video where you tell your story. Whatever platforms you use, you want to show up there consistently. And then you want to track engagement points and take note of which details audiences always pick on, and then refine your story as you go, because your story isn't fixed, it evolves as your business grows. Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, used to tell the story of Facebook as a college experiment. Right now, when he talks about Facebook, he talks about it as a platform that connects people and builds relationships. Whitney Wolf of Bumble used to just focus on dating on Bumble, but now she is pivoted to the story of women making the first move. So your story can evolve even as you grow. And let me end with real life examples of people who implement these systems and have grown multi-million-dollar businesses. First will be Alex Hormozi of Acquisition.com. He tells you of when he started, how he failed, how he built a gym, how he slept in the gym. He films raw, unedited moments, and then he connects his past struggles to his current success. and then he sells you his offer. This ties to all the different elements I've mentioned in this video. Perhaps you're saying to yourself, I only sell to 6-7 figure clients, I don't need to do this. Last time I checked, Alex only sells to businesses who are doing over $2 million per year in revenue. So if he's telling this many stories, it means it definitely works. Then there's Rachel Rogers of Hello7. She has weekly personalized money stories. She uses specific numbers, and then she connects her personal growth to client potential, and she only does written content. Alex, on the other hand, does majorly video content. And let me show you one more example in the podcasting. Guy Raz of How I Built This also does this really well. He structures interviews around key moments in his life, and then he draws out specific detail, and he creates emotional connection points. So it means whichever platform you major on, this would work irrespective. If you run a podcast, you're just on YouTube, LinkedIn, short form content, if you can tell proper stories, you are sitting on a gold mine. Hopefully this video was helpful. My name is Martin and I run a content agency. If you would like to work with me one-on-one to craft your founder's story like I've done for a ton of clients, you can go ahead and book a call with me below and we can see if we're a good fit working together. If not, and this video was helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more in-depth videos like this to grow your service-based business, and please leave a comment. I would like to engage with you in the comment section. See you in our next video.